My arch nemesis has been acting super weird lately. He stopped trying to get a rise out of me and just stares at this one photo all day. I even accidentally caught him doing some strange things with it. I was dying of curiosity, so I snuck a peek at the picture. Holy crap, is that me? But I'm a guy. Everyone at the office knows that Gavin and I don't get along. He's got a sharp tongue and I've got a smart mouth. The second we see each other, it's on. We basically try to drown each other in insults. But we weren't always like this. We met when we were little kids. We were practically blood brothers, so close I knew where every single one of his moles was. When we were 4, his family moved in across the street from mine. The first time we met, I called him little sister. I wasn't trying to get his gender wrong. It's just that he honestly looked like a little girl. His face was all soft and pink. His eyes were huge and round, and his voice was sweet and high-pitched. Even though we were the same age, with him just a few months younger, I was like a little soot ball with the gravelly voice of a 30-year-old man. If you didn't see my face, you'd think I was a grown-up. Since we were around the same age and our personalities clicked, Gavin and I quickly became best friends. We did everything together, eating, sleeping, playing games. We were attached at the hip like conjoined twins. The old ladies who sat on their porches gossiping would always joke that if one of us had been a girl, our families could have set us up for marriage. I remember what I told Gavin back then. If you're still this good-looking when we grow up, I'll marry you. He shook his head. No way. I'm a boy. My mom says boys can't be with boys. I was a bossy little kid. I don't care. I like you, and I want to be with you. When we turn 18, we'll be together. Even though we had our fights, our friendship never changed. It stayed strong for over a decade, until our last final exam of senior year. Gavin told me to wait for him at the school gate after the test, saying he had something to tell me. Turns out, I had something I wanted to tell him, too. As soon as the bell rang, I bolted for the gate. But halfway there, a girl stopped me and confessed her feelings. There was a pretty big crowd watching, and I didn't want her to lose face, so I accepted for the moment. Once the onlookers dispersed, I immediately cleared things up with her, telling her I already liked someone. She was really grateful that I'd saved her the embarrassment. She gave me the flowers she'd brought for her confession and wished me all the best with a smile. When I got to the gate, Gavin was nowhere to be seen. I waited for almost 2 hours, but he never showed. When I got home, I saw him standing at my front door, holding a huge bouquet of roses. I was pissed that he'd stood me up, but we just finished our finals, and I didn't want to ruin the mood. I swallowed my anger, walked over, and bumped his shoulder with mine. Looks like our little Gavin got a confession, too, I teased. I leaned in, hungry for gossip. Come on, tell your big bro. Who was it? Do I know her? He didn't answer, just stared at the flowers in my arms with a deep frown. You accepted the flowers? I was completely baffled. Am I not allowed to? I don't know what I said wrong, but his face went dark. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. You are just... He didn't finish his sentence. He just turned and walked into his house without a backward glance. After that day, everything changed. We started this weird, unspoken Cold War. No matter what I said, he just ignored me. Eventually, I got fed up and started firing back at him, which led to where we are today, mortal enemies. But fate is a funny thing. Even though we couldn't stand the sight of each other, we ended up at the same university without any discussion. After graduation, we even ended up at the same company. We've been fighting each other from school all the way to the office. Yeah, right. At the company team building event, the boss was praising Gavin to the skies for crushing his sales targets. Watching him soak up the praise just made me even more annoyed. I let out a sneer, grabbed my glass, and walked over to him. His colleagues, who had been laughing and joking with him, knew I was about to stir the pot and scattered immediately, keeping a safe distance. Gavin glanced at me, his tone flat. What do you want? I grabbed a bottle from the table and filled his glass to the brim. A toast to our star designer, Gavin, for leading his team to such a great success. He paused for a few seconds, then raised his glass to mine. Thanks. He tilted his head back and downed the entire glass in one go. I was hoping he wouldn't finish it so I could give him crap and pour him a few more, maybe get him drunk. I'd never seen him drunk before and was curious if he'd make a fool of himself. But I never got another chance to get near him, let alone pour him more drinks. Instead, I was the one who almost got wasted. The boss was feeling generous and set up a grand prize of 10,000 for the raffle. I, who have the worst luck ever, won it on the first draw. My colleagues swarmed me, all wanting to toast me to soak up some of my good luck. Glass after glass, I started feeling dizzy and made a run for the bathroom. When I came out, everyone was dancing. Only Gavin was sitting alone in a corner, staring into space. A bold young woman walked up and asked him to dance. He just smiled, shook his head, and politely declined. Suddenly, a wicked idea popped into my head. I went over and grabbed his hand. I meant to pull him out of his chair, but I was a little unsteady. He didn't get up, but I ended up on my knees. The position was pretty awkward. I was kneeling between his legs, and to top it off, my brain short-circuited and I blurted out, "Nice." "Fuck, what am I saying?" His tone was calm. "You're drunk." That pissed me off. Who said I was drunk? I can drink anyone under the table. Even a seasoned frat boy would have to bow down. I grabbed Gavin's hand, dragged him to the center of the dance floor, and then I started leading him in the chicken dance. I had no ulterior motive other than to see him make a fool of himself. After all, the great and powerful Gavin's only weakness was his inability to do the chicken dance. Ignoring his thunderous expression, I grinned. "Listen to your big bro. Left foot out, cross your right, then left foot, right foot." Gavin ignored me, just standing there and staring at me coldly. I gave him a wicked grin, leaned in close, and whispered his name right in his ear. "Gavin." His body went rigid. A deep blush spread across his face, all the way to the base of his neck. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Back when we started middle school, he told me not to talk into his ear. When I asked why, he wouldn't tell me. I was too curious. So one day I snuck up on him and yelled his name in his ear. He went limp and nearly collapsed. From that day on, I started to question my life. Did my breath really smell that bad? It was only later that I realized his ears were just incredibly sensitive. So whenever we were messing around and I was losing, I'd cheat by whispering his name in his ear over and over. It was the one way I could get him to behave. I couldn't believe it still worked. His ears were just as sensitive as ever. When he snapped out of it, his eyes were blazing with fury. He gritted his teeth. You. I grinned and tweaked his earlobe. "Good boy. You need to listen." He was so thrown by my back-to-back stunts that he was like a puppet on a string, letting me do whatever I wanted. Even though Gavin tried his best to follow along, his dancing was a disaster. Was it zombie disco? A senior citizen's rehab routine? The solo of an untamed set of limbs? I put my hands on my hips, looking disgusted. "Gavin, how can you be so clumsy?" Frustrated by his lack of progress, I ran over and slapped him on the ass. Wow, it was firm. I couldn't resist giving it another smack. Gavin's eyes widened in shock, a vein popping on his forehead. He clenched his fists, and the tips of his ears turned beet red. I burst out laughing. "Why are your ears so red? We're both guys. It's not a big deal if I slap your ass." As I said it, I reached out and gave it another good squeeze before he could react, then made a quick getaway. I got in my payback and let off some steam. I was so happy I chugged a bottle of vodka. I don't remember anything after that, but I think I had a dream, a really steamy dream about someone. The next day at work, I ran into Gavin in the elevator. He actually smiled at me. The hairs on my arms stood up, and my scalp tingled. I didn't know how to react. The second the elevator doors opened, I bolted. In my haste, my left foot tripped my right, and I went down with a thud, right onto my knees. He rushed forward and scooped me up in his arms. "Are you okay?" Looking into his worried eyes, I froze. Why was he princess carrying me? I struggled out of his arms and ran without looking back. Hiding in a corner, I gasped for air, my hand on my chest, my heart pounding like a drum. To this day, I still jolt awake in the middle of the night thinking, seriously, what is wrong with him? After that, he would always glance at me here and there, with this strange look in his eyes, a mix of resentment and sadness. A lot of our colleagues couldn't take it anymore and told me to stop picking on Gavin. How was I the one picking on him? Weren't we always picking on each other? Even the boss pulled me aside. Lucas, he said earnestly, I know you and Gavin have your issues, but… He trailed off, but I knew what he was going to say. He was going to tell me not to bully Gavin. I have to admit, Gavin's tactics were brilliant. He'd learned how to play the victim, but I wasn't falling for it. At the morning meeting, I was my usual self, snide remarks, nitpicking, tearing his proposal to shreds. Normally, he would have fired right back at me, but this time he didn't say a word. He just calmly said, "Okay, I get it. I'll revise it after the meeting." He glanced at me and pushed the proposal over. "Take another look and see if there's anything else that needs changing. I'll do it all at once." My face must have looked like I'd eaten shit. I was convinced he'd either been kicked in the head by a donkey or was possessed. I really wanted to know what happened after I got drunk at the team building event. Why had Gavin changed so much? Speaking of the event, I wanted to thank whoever was nice enough to take me home and buy them dinner. But when I asked around, none of my colleagues knew who it was. I know what I'm like when I'm drunk, a useless lump. I can barely stand, let alone walk home. There's no way I got back by myself. Couldn't have been Gavin, right? I'd be lucky if he didn't sell my kidneys on the black market while I was drunk, let alone take me home. I just don't believe it. Could it be that Gavin was planning some huge revenge scheme because I embarrassed him? So I watched him closely for a few days. But all he did was work diligently or stare blankly at a photo. Maybe he felt my gaze because he looked up. When he saw me looking, he quickly hid the photo. The way he was guarding it from me like I was a thief made me think I figured it out. He was probably in a relationship. He was hiding it because he was afraid I'd try to steal his girlfriend. Although I was dying to know who was in the picture, my common sense told me to mind my own business. Without the constant fighting with Gavin, I had a rare spell of peace. Life was good, but happy days are always short-lived. The day before a national holiday, the company sent me and Gavin, the two design team leaders, on a last-minute business trip. When we got to our destination, the city was packed with tourists, and every hotel was fully booked. Luckily, we finally found one with a vacancy. Unluckily, it was just one room and it had a king-sized bed. Me and Gavin in the same room, sleeping in the same bed? Hell no. But we had no choice. It was the middle of the night, and we had an early meeting with a client the next day. So when Gavin asked if we should take it or keep looking, I gritted my teeth and said, "Let's take it." When we got into the room, I was stunned. The bathroom wall was made of glass, completely transparent glass. Just then, Gavin asked me, "You want to shower first or should I?" "You go first," I said. He nodded. "Okay, I'll go first then." Inside the bathroom, just as Gavin was about to take off his clothes, he suddenly looked up and our eyes met. I had been staring right at him. I felt a bit awkward, so I scratched my nose and turned away. I swear I wasn't trying to peep. I was just trying to see if there was some kind of switch for the bathroom, like one that could turn the clear glass frosted. Otherwise, what's the difference between this and showering on the street? The thought of it made me uncomfortable. Unfortunately, there was no such switch. The transparent glass remained transparent, and his bare ass remained. Oog, nu, nu, nu. Forget I said that. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. As someone who's normally so disciplined, I couldn't stop myself from glancing toward the bathroom. I wondered, how could Gavin just shower in front of me without a care in the world? Wasn't he afraid I'd watch? Did he trust me that much? After a bit of an internal struggle, I put on my headphones, turned on some music, and sat in the chair by the window, staring outside. Honestly, after fighting with Gavin for so long, I was getting tired. Everyone thought I was as smart as he was, but in reality, he was a true genius, and I was just working my ass off to keep up. As time went on, I felt like I was struggling more and more to match his pace. If it weren't for his occasional slip-ups at work that gave me a sliver of hope, I wouldn't have been able to keep this up for so long. Half an hour later, Gavin came out of the shower. I turned to look, and he was wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist. He had an amazing body, abs, pecs, biceps, the works. He had it all. Droplets of water that he hadn't dried from his hair trickled down his collarbone, disappearing under the towel. The sight was strangely alluring. I suddenly felt a little thirsty. But why wasn't he wearing any clothes? He knew we were sharing a room. He had to be doing this on purpose. Was he trying to show off his great body? I scoffed, lifted my shirt for a quick look, and yup, just one big ub. I demanded loudly, "Why aren't you wearing any clothes?" He looked helpless. I forgot to grab them. I called for you to help, but you didn't answer. I had headphones on. How was I supposed to hear you? I snapped. Besides, you should do things yourself. Didn't your teachers ever teach you that? He suddenly smiled and apologized. Sorry, my bad. His apologetic attitude completely threw me off. I just snorted, ignored him, and grabbed my clothes to head into the bathroom. At the door, I threatened him menacingly. If you dare to peek, I'll gouge your eyes out. I knew Gavin wasn't interested in me, but I still turned off the lights and showered in the dark. When I came out, Gavin was already asleep. I was exhausted from the long day, so I just climbed into bed and passed out. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by a strange noise. Listening closely, I realized it was coming from the bathroom. Listening even more closely, I could hear Gavin's soft moans. As a guy, I knew exactly what he was doing. If I were to burst in right now, I'd probably scare him so bad he'd go limp. But I'm not that much of a jerk. No matter how much we fought, I couldn't mess with his sex life. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. It was 5 a.m. I could still get 2 more hours of sleep. But I couldn't fall back asleep no matter what, so I just stared at the ceiling. After what felt like forever, the bathroom door opened. Gavin walked out. I quickly shut my eyes and pretended to be asleep. His footsteps stopped right beside my bed. My heart seized up. Was he going to kill me? Images of murder and dismemberment flashed through my mind, and I shivered. But it was clear I was overthinking it. A few seconds later, he shuffled over to the other side of the bed. But a long time passed and he didn't get in. I cracked my eyes open a tiny bit to see what he was doing. In the faint light from the window, I saw the photo in his hand. A smile played on his lips as his fingers caressed the picture, his expression full of tenderness. I hadn't heard him open his bag. It seemed he had taken the photo with him to the bathroom. Now I was even more curious. Who was this person in the photo that he couldn't control himself over? The next morning, we went to meet the client. The meeting went great, and the client insisted on taking us to a bar for drinks. I'd heard from Gavin's team members recently that he'd been drinking too much and was having stomach problems, taking medicine every day. I was worried that if he drank again and something happened, I'd be responsible. So I made an excuse for him to go back to the hotel. But for some reason, he insisted on going. I was so mad I could have ground my teeth to dust. The client brought about a dozen of his friends, a mix of handsome guys and beautiful women. At first, everyone was pretty reserved, but after a few drinks, they went completely wild, singing, dancing, and howling like animals. I've seen wild, but never this wild. People outside were staring through the window. I was so embarrassed. I rubbed my temples, wanting to cry. When was this going to end? Suddenly, I felt a puff of hot air by my ear. I jumped and whipped my head around. It was Gavin. He was very close to me, his mouth opening and closing as he said something. I couldn't hear him, so I leaned my ear closer. Only then did I hear him say, "If you're not feeling well, just pass the drinks to me. I'll drink for you." So he thought I was rubbing my temples because I was feeling sick. Just as I was about to explain, someone behind me bumped into me hard, and I ended up kissing Gavin right on the lips. Before I could even react, the person behind me grabbed my arm and pulled me back. It was a bigger guy, also drunk, slurring his words. "Dude, sorry. I bumped into you. You okay?" I managed an awkward smile. "I'm fine, except my first kiss was gone, and I didn't even know what it tasted like." Suddenly, the big guy exclaimed, "Your lip is bleeding." I quickly touched my lip, and my fingertips came away with blood. I touched it again and must have hit the cut because it stung. The guy looked nervous and grabbed a napkin from the table to wipe my mouth. Before he could touch me, I was pulled back into a solid chest. I heard Gavin's voice by my ear. Let me see. Maybe it was my imagination, but Gavin's voice sounded worried, anxious, and a little tense. He cupped my chin, forcing my face up, and frowned as he gently dabbed at the cut with his thumb. My mind went blank. In a panic, I slapped his hand away, mumbled something about going to the restroom, and fled. I splashed cold water on my face, which finally helped me calm down. Once I was calm, I felt a little annoyed with myself. It was just a bump on the lips. Why did I react so strongly? It was a long time before I went back to the private room. The party finally ended when the client's wife called, telling him to come home. After saying our goodbyes, I helped a completely wasted Gavin back to the hotel. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he just kept downing drink after drink, and nothing I said could stop him. While waiting for the elevator, I glanced at Gavin, who was leaning on my shoulder. He looked much more pleasant asleep than awake. I couldn't help but stare a little longer. Handsome, definitely handsome, but his temper was just so foul and weird. I couldn't figure him out. Back in the room, I tossed Gavin onto the bed and went to take a shower. After my shower, I got some water and a towel to wipe him down. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stand the thought of sharing a bed with a stinky him all night. After cleaning him up, I ran into a problem. I didn't mind him being shirtless, but I glanced at Gavin's black underwear, which I'd tossed on the floor. It didn't feel right for him to be without them, so I started rummaging through his bag for a clean pair. Suddenly, I saw the photo tucked into a side pocket. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled it out. I figured, Gavin's drunk, he'll never know. I'll just take one look and put it right back. But when I saw the person in the photo, I froze. Wasn't that me? I thought about what he was doing in the bathroom last night. Was he doing that to my picture? I searched his backpack again, emptying everything out, but there were no other photos. I felt like I had stumbled upon a massive secret. Could it be that he liked me? But I heard a rustling sound behind me. I turned my head mechanically. Gavin had somehow sat up and was tilting his head, looking at me. His gaze shifted to the photo in my hand, and I froze in place. My brain went into overdrive. If he asked me what I was doing with his photo, how would I explain it? Should I just get mad, put my hands on my hips, and call him a pervert? Or should I seriously question him about why he was doing that to my photo? Before I could decide, he scrambled towards me like a madman. The way he moved was like something out of a sci-fi movie, one of those mutated creatures. It was pretty terrifying. But what kind of mutated creature runs around naked? I didn't know where to look. The person who had been lunging at me suddenly took a sharp turn and dove for the backpack on the table. Gavin was frantically searching for something in the bag, muttering, "Where is it? Where could it be? How is it not here?" I thought he was looking for the photo and carefully held it out to him. He stopped, glanced at the photo, then at me, and then went back to frantically rummaging through his bag. "What are you looking for?" I asked. He didn't even look up. "A face mask." I was confused. "Huh? What do you need a face mask for?" He seemed agitated, grabbing his hair and yelling, "If I don't use a face mask, I'll get ugly. And if I'm ugly, I won't be handsome anymore." I suddenly burst out laughing. So it wasn't just average-looking people like me who had insecurities about their appearance. Even a gorgeous guy like Gavin had these worries. Afraid of getting ugly, afraid of not being handsome. Back in the day, when my mom sent me over to Gavin's place with something, I'd often see him with a face mask on. I just thought it was a hobby of his. Turns out he was afraid of getting ugly. He dumped everything out of his bag, but there was no face mask to be found. After a few seconds of silence, he stood up and swayed towards the door. I was puzzled. "Where are you going in the middle of the night?" he said without turning back to buy a face mask. Seriously, what's gotten into him? What beauty store is open in the middle of the night? I grabbed him. "It's so late. Stop making a scene. Can't you just put it on tomorrow?" He shook his head, enunciating each word. "No, I can't. What kind of idiot tries to reason with a drunk person?" "Okay, I'm that idiot." No matter what I said, I couldn't get through to him. Gavin insisted on putting on a face mask right then and there, and he was on the verge of tears. I can't stand seeing people cry, man or woman. I had no choice but to give in. Fine, fine, fine. I'll go buy you one right now. Is that okay? You're impossible. Downstairs, I asked the front desk clerk to let me out. She asked, "Where are you going so late?" I gave a helpless smile. "To see if I can find a place that sells face masks." The clerk was as kind as she was beautiful. Without a word, she pulled a face mask out of her own bag and handed it to me. I tried to pay her, but she refused. I must have said thank you 50 times. Back in the room, I tossed the mask to Gavin. "Happy now?" He looked at the mask and his face lit up with a huge smile. But who would have thought that just having the mask wasn't enough? He grabbed me and insisted I wash his face for him. Looking at his expectant eyes, I just couldn't bring myself to refuse. Gavin's face was not only fair but also incredibly soft. Felt really nice to touch. I couldn't resist giving his cheek a pinch. I might have been a bit rough because it left a big red mark. He whimpered and looked up at me with teary eyes. Ow! My heart skipped a beat. I glanced down and, shit, I was hard. Just as Gavin's eyes followed my gaze, I quickly covered them with my hand. My whole face felt like it was on fire. This was so damn embarrassing. I wanted to run, but Gavin wouldn't let me go. He insisted I put the mask on him, and after that, he wanted me to massage his face to help it absorb. After the whole routine, he finally fell asleep, satisfied. As for me, I was sweating and my hands were sticky. It was awful. After another shower, I picked up the photo from the table. Gavin was doing that with my picture. Does that mean he likes me? But I clearly heard him say he doesn't like guys. I stayed up all night, my mind replaying our childhood memories. This actually wasn't the first time I'd had a reaction to Gavin. The summer after freshman year of high school, our families went on vacation together. Gavin and I were having a swimming race in the hotel pool. I lost and clung to him, acting like a sore loser. He didn't say anything, just smiled at me and gently wiped a drop of water from my eyelashes. That was the first time my heart had ever pounded like that. That night, I had a dream filled with nothing but Gavin. When I woke up the next morning, I lifted the covers and panicked. I completely fell for him in sophomore year. Seeing him get close to other people, seeing him smile at them, made me furious. At first, I thought it was just possessiveness, but I had plenty of other close guy friends, and I never felt that way about them. I asked our class's resident love guru, and he told me I was in love with him. And I had to admit he was right. I was in love. I had planned to confess everything after our final exams. But then we had our falling out, and the chance never came. Later, after we started working, I overheard a male intern confess to him. Gavin told him he didn't like guys. If he doesn't like guys, then why was he doing that with my photo? I finally fell asleep as the sun was coming up, but a few minutes later, I was violently shaken awake. I screamed in terror, "Earthquake? Is it an earthquake?" Gavin, with his handsome face, delivered the cold news. "We have less than half an hour until our meeting with the client." From the looks of it, he had forgotten everything that happened last night. I worked my ass off for him, and I didn't even get a thank you. I should have taken a video to show him whenever I felt like it. Even though Gavin and I don't get along personally, when it comes to work, we're a perfect match. Our synergy is off the charts. After the client meeting, Gavin said he had something to do and rushed off alone. I was playing on my phone on the bed when he got back. He asked me, "The night market here is pretty popular. Want to go check it out with me?" I wanted to go, but I felt embarrassed to agree right away, so I asked, "Are you going alone? Or are you meeting someone?" My plan was that if he said he was alone, I'd reluctantly agree to go with him. But to my surprise, Gavin said he was meeting someone. But if I wanted to go, he could just let the other person know, and the three of us could go together. If I remember correctly, he never meets up with anyone besides clients. The person he was meeting had to be someone important, maybe the girl he liked. I wasn't about to be a third wheel. I waved my hands. Never mind, never mind. I'm too lazy. I'm not going. You guys have fun." He nodded. "Okay, I'm heading out then." He turned and left without a second glance. But at the door, he turned back around and opened his backpack as I watched. confused. He pulled out a photo and handed it to me. What do you think? This is the person I like. He looked at me nervously as he said it. My breath caught in my throat, and my mind went blank. The person he likes? He was holding my photo and saying it's the person he likes. So he likes me? Is he about to confess to me right now? I was in a daze. He prompted me, take a look. My heart was pounding like a drum. With trembling hands, I took the photo and glanced at it. My eyes widened. The person in the photo wasn't me. It was a girl with striking eyebrows, big eyes, and rosy lips. She was beautiful, but she looked vaguely familiar, like I'd seen her somewhere before. So the person he liked wasn't me after all. I had gotten my hopes up for nothing. I couldn't suppress the sour feeling rising in my chest. I managed to force a smile. She's very pretty. Your girlfriend? He shook his head. Not yet. I'm planning to ask her out. I smiled. Well, you should hurry up and go. Don't keep the lady waiting. He shook his head and said, no rush. Then he pulled another photo out of his bag and handed it to me. I looked at him, confused. He explained, this is your photo. Your mom told my mom that this picture of you went missing. My mom remembered I had a copy, so she told me to give it to her. I was supposed to give it back a long time ago, but I was too busy to go home and see my parents, so I just kept it in my bag. When you go back to see your parents after this trip, you can just give it to your mom. I took the photo. Yeah, I was planning to go back after this trip anyway. Don't worry, I'll definitely give it to my mom. After Gavin left, I tried to play some games on my phone, but I was too agitated and lost several rounds in a row. Frustrated, I turned off the game and let out a long sigh. This was so annoying. My mind kept circling back to it. How did Gavin get a crush on someone? We saw each other every day. How did I not notice him getting close to this girl? The more I thought about it, the more annoyed and depressed I got. Afraid I'd wallow myself to death, I decided to go out for a walk. Without realizing it, I ended up at the night market. I smacked myself on the head in frustration. What was I doing here? But just as I was about to leave, I ran into Gavin, who was supposed to be on a date. He looked surprised to see me, too. What are you doing here? I forced a smile. I was bored of lying around, so I came out. I glanced behind him, but there was no one there. Where's your date? Gavin gave an awkward smile. She couldn't make it. I nodded. It was awkward. I didn't know what to say. Seeing my silence, he said, "Wanna walk around together?" I nodded. Sure. The night market was crowded, and at least half the people there were couples. Seeing them holding hands just made my eyes ache. Sometimes I really envy them, being able to love someone openly. Not like me. Sigh. Gavin tilted his head to look at me. Why the sigh? I forced a smile. Just a little tired. Let's find a place to sit. We bought a few cans of beer and sat on the grass, drinking and watching the moon. At first, neither of us said anything. After a while, Gavin suddenly said, "I don't think we should be like this." I nodded. I agree. For once, we were on the same page about something outside of work. We looked at each other and both smiled. And just like that, we made up. After we reconciled, we were even clingier than when we were kids. Gavin came over to my place every day after work. He ate my food, drank my drinks, wore my clothes, and slept in my bed. I couldn't get rid of him. That night, he was lounging on my bed again. I laughed, exasperated. You're at my place all the time. You don't have any time to chase that girl you like. Aren't you afraid someone else will snatch her up? Not afraid of that. I'm more afraid of... I was curious. Afraid of what? He propped his head on his arm and looked at me with a slight smile. I can't tell you that yet. Maybe someday I'll get the chance. I rolled my eyes. Whatever. Don't tell me if you don't want to. The next morning, I woke up to find Gavin in the kitchen wearing an apron, making breakfast. When he saw me, he gave me a sweet smile. His smile was so radiant it momentarily dazed me. And this is a big if only Gavin liked guys. Lucas? I snapped back to reality with an awkward smile. Gavin looked worried and touched my forehead. Did I hog the blankets last night? Did you catch a cold? I shook my head. No. He wasn't convinced and made me take my temperature with a thermometer before he finally relaxed. After breakfast, we left the house together and went to the office together. Seeing us walk into the company laughing and talking, everyone seemed happy. But no one was happier than our boss. Meetings used to drag on for an extra half hour just from me and Gavin bickering. Now, meetings were over in under 10 minutes. Our work efficiency had skyrocketed. The boss clapped both of us on the shoulder. "Gavin, Lucas, I'm so happy to see you two get along in my lifetime." We ate lunch together, worked late discussing proposals together, and stood on the balcony catching the breeze together. Life was genuinely good. One day, Gavin was out on an assignment, so I was alone for lunch. Kevin, Gavin's good friend from college and also a member of his team, sat down across from me with his tray. I looked around. There were plenty of empty tables. I didn't get what he was doing, so I asked, "Do you need something?" He stared at me for a long time. "You like Gavin, don't you?" I panicked, my eyes widening as I stared at him. How did he know? Was I that obvious? But that couldn't be right. I've never done anything over the top. When I didn't answer, he asked again, "You like Gavin?" I suppressed my panic and forced a smile. How could that be? We're both guys. Yeah, you're both guys. He could never like you, he said with a mocking smile. So please, get rid of those disgusting thoughts and don't say anything to make him hate you. If I can see it, you think he can't? The only reason he hasn't called you out is because he doesn't like you. So don't even think about it. It's never going to happen between you two. My usual personality would have been to tear into him, to verbally annihilate him. But he was right. Gavin would never like me. Still, what right did he have to say this to me? Even if Gavin didn't like me, it wasn't his place to be the messenger. I let out a sneer. As disgusting as my thoughts might be, they're not as disgusting as your face. And another thing, even if he doesn't like me, he'll still pick up when I call. He'll still come to my place if I invite him. Can you say the same? As I spoke, I dialed Gavin's number. He answered almost instantly. "What's up, Lucas? When are you coming back? Things are running late here. I probably won't make it back to the office." "Okay, well, we're having hot pot tonight. I'll wait for you at my place." "Sounds good. I'll head home early then." After hanging up, I shot Kevin a triumphant look. Not to be outdone, he tried calling Gavin too, but after dozens of tries, there was no answer. He looked furious, like he was about to crush his phone. He turned and stormed off. The smile vanished from my face. It wasn't that Gavin wouldn't answer his calls, it was because Gavin had told me that morning he'd forgotten his work phone. I had called his personal number. Even though I'd won, I didn't feel happy at all. If it weren't for Kevin, maybe my happiness could have lasted a little longer. But now I couldn't run from it anymore. I couldn't control my fiercely beating heart. That night, after hot pot, it was a little warm, so Gavin and I sat on the balcony to cool off. He turned to look at me, his smile bright. "This is nice." I wanted to say it was nice too, but I couldn't keep this up anymore. I was afraid if I continued, my overwhelming feelings for him would spiral out of control. It was true that I liked Gavin, and it was true that I wanted to be with him. But he liked someone else, a girl. Just like Kevin said, he would never like me. If we stayed this close, I would only fall deeper. But if I told him I liked him, it would only cause him trouble. Since the outcome was the same either way, it was better to rip the band-aid off now. We had to part ways. The next day after work, I told him I had some things to do for a few days and that he should go back to his own place. Though he looked confused, he listened and went home. After that day, I started avoiding Gavin. He asked me to hang out several times, but I always made up an excuse to say no. He must have noticed something was off because he cornered me at my front door. He asked me, "Lucas, did I do something wrong recently to make you unhappy?" I shook my head. "No." "Then why are you avoiding me?" I suddenly felt defeated. I had tried so hard, but the moment I saw Gavin, my heart still fluttered. It was chaos. Gavin asked me again, "Lucas, why are you avoiding me?" Seeing the desperate look in his eyes, I felt a lump in my throat, like a ball of cotton was stuck there, making it hard to breathe. The emotional breakdown came in an instant, a surging tide I couldn't control. I wanted to cry so badly. I fought back the ache in my heart. "It's nothing. I've just been feeling a little overwhelmed lately." Can you just give me a few days to myself, please? Gavin froze for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, I get it. After that day, he really didn't come looking for me again. We seemed to have reverted to our old ways, just without the bickering. My colleagues would look at me and Gavin, seeing us not speaking a word to each other, and exchange confused glances. One of them asked me, "Did you guys have a fight?" I shook my head. Nope. He was puzzled. Then what's going on? Why are you back to how you were before? I didn't explain because I didn't know how to. In Gavin's eyes, I must seem totally irrational. But I really couldn't think of a better way. The next day at noon, I heard from a colleague that Gavin got into a fight with someone and was apparently hurt pretty badly. My heart dropped, and I rushed to find him. The person he was fighting with was Kevin. He had Kevin pinned to the ground, punching him over and over, as if he wouldn't stop until he was dead. I was terrified he would actually kill Kevin, which would ruin his own life. I rushed forward and grabbed his raised fist. "Gavin, that's enough." Gavin's body went rigid. He turned to look at me, his eyes incredibly red, as if he'd been crying. In the break room, I was silently dabbing antiseptic on Gavin's wounds, my face grim. He looked at me with puppy dog eyes. "Lucas, don't be mad." I snapped. "I'll stop being mad when you tell me why you were fighting with Kevin." He was quiet for a few seconds. He tried to steal my girl. Couldn't take it, so I hit him. So it was over the girl he liked. A sharp, stinging pain spread through my chest. But still, having your girl stolen by a friend? That definitely warranted a beating. Kevin should have known better than to mess with a friend's partner. Instead of being a decent person, he tried to poach someone. He deserved it. But Gavin was back at my place, refusing to leave. Whenever I told him to go, he'd cry out that his wounds hurt and he needed someone to take care of him. Helpless, I had to let him stay. But our time together was incredibly awkward. He was always trying to get close to me, and I was always dodging him. One day we were working late and grabbing a late-night snack. I got some ketchup on the corner of my mouth. He reached out to wipe it off and I snapped at him. The next day, he left without a word and never came back to my place again. I had gotten used to him being there. The empty apartment felt a little scary. I walked around like a puppet on a string, with no energy for anything. Gavin seemed to be avoiding me, too. I hardly ever saw him. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? But my heart ached. Soon it was the end of the year. At the annual company party, everyone was toasting each other. I'd been using alcohol to numb myself and try to forget Gavin, so I'd been drinking a lot lately. My stomach was upset, and I didn't want to be rude by refusing drinks. So after a few glasses, I started pretending to be drunk, planning to sneak away when no one was looking. But then Gavin said, "You guys go on, I'll take him home." Everyone glanced at me, seemingly passed out, and nodded. This was killing me. Gavin Princess carried me again, and the places where our bodies touched felt scorching hot. My heart, oh my heart, was in turmoil once more. After taking me home, Gavin didn't leave right away. He came out of the bathroom with a wet towel. He wiped my hands and face. Just as he was about to take off my clothes, I panicked. If I let him undress me, could I handle it? My cover would be blown. I pretended to be a drunk mess, swatting his hand away. "Go away, I want to sleep." His voice was gentle. "Be good. Let me wipe you down first, or you'll be uncomfortable." I grumbled. "Sleep. I want to sleep." He sighed and didn't insist. I turned over, burying my face in my arm, and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. But then Gavin turned me over, so I was lying flat on my back. He gently brushed the stray hairs from my forehead, then stroked my cheek. My heart was in my throat. The next second, I exploded. Gavin was kissing me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I snapped my eyes open. He probably didn't expect me to open my eyes. He completely panicked, his face turning pale. He shot up and turned to run. I scrambled off the bed and grabbed his arm. He struggled for a bit but couldn't break free. Finally, he gave up and let his head hang down. I asked him, "Why did you kiss me?" I was so desperate to know why he'd kissed me that I practically yelled. He kept his head down, silent. I got more anxious, cupping his face and forcing him to look at me. He bit his lip, refusing to speak. If you don't tell me, we're done. We'll never speak again for the rest of our lives. I was gambling, betting that he cared about me. No, to be precise, I was betting that he actually liked me. He gave a bitter smile. Because I like you. I was stunned. What did you say? He seemed to have given up all pretense. I said, I like you. My brain exploded into fireworks. Gavin likes me. He said he likes me. So he likes me too. I was ecstatic, but he looked miserable. Do you think I'm disgusting? Ignoring his shock, I kissed him. When the kiss ended, his voice trembled. You? I smiled. What about me? He was so nervous. He was shaking all over. You kissed me? I nodded. Yeah, I kissed you. He looked at me in disbelief, cautiously. You like me? I smiled and caressed his face. Are you an idiot? You don't get it? I like you. Gavin, I don't kiss people I don't like. He frowned, a conflicted look on his face. But, aren't you straight? I laughed. Who told you I was straight? I certainly never said that. Gavin looked like he was half laughing, half fuming. Kevin did. He came to me the other day and told me he'd told you I liked you. He said you looked disgusted and said you didn't like me. He said you were avoiding me because you found out I liked you and you hated me for it. I'm not mad that you don't like me, but I am mad that he was the one to tell you. Even if I was going to be rejected, I wanted to be the one to tell you myself, and I wanted to hear your answer from your own mouth. What right did he have? I was confused. You told him you liked me? Gavin shook his head. Of course not. Even if he's my friend, I'd never tell him that. The more Gavin talked, the more agitated he became, his eyes turning red. I quickly patted his back to comfort him. Don't be angry. He was just trying to drive a wedge between us. If you get mad, you're just falling into his trap. But I still didn't understand why Kevin would do that. It was only later, when Kevin confessed his feelings to Gavin, that it all clicked. He liked Gavin too. No wonder he was so hostile towards me. I had to laugh. He was clever, I'll give him that, trying to manipulate us. Gavin rejected him and made it clear that he should stop bothering him, or he'd call the police. That's when Kevin finally backed off, dejected. That night, Gavin and I were lying in bed, his arms wrapped around me. I was still a little confused. That year after the final exams, why did you give me the cold shoulder? Bringing that up just made him angry again. He said I had promised to marry him, but then I accepted someone else's confession. He had been all ready to confess to me. He was so mad, but he couldn't tell me any of that, so he used the cold shoulder to vent his frustration. I was shocked. He liked me even back then. It was all because we never just talked. Otherwise, we wouldn't have wasted all these years. I quickly explained, I didn't accept it. I turned her down. She gave me the flowers to thank me for saving her from embarrassment. He didn't believe me. You're lying. You guys went out to eat and went shopping together after that. I had to explain that during our Cold War, I was a mess, but I couldn't tell anyone I liked him. But that girl had figured it out right away and promised to keep my secret. As for the meals and shopping trips, she saw how down I was and was worried I'd do something stupid, so she took me out. The girl told me that if you can't be lovers, you can be friends. If you can't be friends, be enemies. Find ways to piss him off. If I had followed my own instincts, I would have just stayed far away from him, never to see him again, and we wouldn't be here today. After hearing my explanation, Gavin finally seemed to cheer up. We were cuddling for a bit when he suddenly got up. I was confused. Where are you going? To wash my face, brush my teeth, put on a face mask, and take care of my skin. I pinched his cheek. You're already so handsome. Why are you so obsessed with skincare? He gave me a wounded look. It's because of you. Because of me? He pouted. You're the one who said if I was still as handsome as I was when we were kids, you'd marry me. But that was just a silly, childish joke. I can't believe he took it seriously. Later, he told me that he was the one who took me home on the night of the team building event. He also said I'd forced a kiss on him. I was horrified. What? No way. He'd even recorded a video. It really was me. I didn't just kiss him, I ripped his shirt off and bit his lip so hard it bled. He wasn't angry about what I did. He thought I did it because I liked him. But when he started showing me kindness, I either ignored him or acted like I'd seen a ghost. He began to doubt whether I actually liked him. The business trip for the holiday weekend was originally just for him. The boss told him a month in advance. The last-minute addition of me was Gavin's idea. The hotel was also something he'd arranged and paid for. He wanted us to stay together so he could confirm whether I liked him or not. He watched me in the bathroom for a long time, but I had my headphones in and was listening to music, not even glancing his way. I gasped. So that night in the bathroom when you were doing that, was that also to test me? He shook his head. No, that wasn't. Before, I could only look at you secretly in photos. But that night, you were sleeping right next to me. Couldn't resist. But when I came out and saw you were awake, I deliberately looked at the photo. I knew you'd be curious and try to find a chance to see who was in it. So I pretended to be drunk. I didn't expect you to be so calm when you saw me looking for the photo. That's when I was sure you didn't actually like me. Me, calm? That was just on the surface. Inside, I was ecstatic but also panicking like crazy. That's why I couldn't sleep all night. I guess my acting skills are just too good. But you had a girl you liked, I said. He pulled out the photo. It's photoshopped. After he was convinced I didn't like him, he panicked, afraid I'd be disgusted by him. So after the client meeting, he rushed to find a place that could Photoshop pictures and paid a premium to have my picture altered into a girl's. No wonder the person in the photo looked familiar. It was me. Leave it to Gavin to come up with something like that. The fact that we ended up at the same university, in the same major, and in the same dorm was all because Gavin had followed my applications. He had begged a classmate and the dorm supervisor to switch rooms to be with me. And later, getting a job at the same company, that was because he saw my application and applied too. Turns out, Gavin was this deeply in love with me. I'm so happy. Life after getting together with Gavin was pure bliss. He was amazing at everything, taking care of me, indulging me, and cooking me all sorts of delicious food. But happy days are always short-lived. New Year's was coming. Starting from the 20th of the last lunar month, my mom had been bugging me to come home early, but I dragged it out until the afternoon of New Year's Eve. At my front door, I held onto Gavin's hand, reluctant to let go. Gavin was even more reluctant than me, his eyes already red. I couldn't help but laugh. Hey, we live right across the hall from each other. Don't be like this. If I weren't afraid our parents would pop out at any moment, I would have pulled him in for a passionate kiss. In the end, I had to walk him back to his door before going into my own house. When I got inside, my mom chased me around with a rolling pin. You little brat. All grown up now, got your wings, have you? After our New Year's Eve dinner, I was in my room chatting with Gavin. Gavin said, "What do I do? I miss you." I thought for a moment. Let's go downstairs and watch the fireworks. With 30 seconds left in the countdown, we both bolted out our doors, rushed downstairs, and found a hidden corner where we secretly held hands. The good thing about a small town is that you can see the fireworks. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. After a long silence, Gavin said, "Lucas, do you know what I'm most afraid of?" I turned to look at him. What? He gently pulled me into his arms. I'm afraid of not having you by my side. That's why I'd rather be your nemesis than lose contact with you. Looking into his reddened eyes, my heart ached for him. We'll never be apart. He nodded. Yeah. We'll never be apart. We couldn't help but kiss. A loud bang made both of us jump. We whipped our heads around and saw my parents and Gavin's parents. Well, we're so screwed. I followed my parents back home. My dad didn't have much of a reaction. He just patted my shoulder and went into the bedroom, leaving me alone with my mom, whose face was ashen. I knew this day would come, but I didn't think it would be so soon. I knew there was nothing wrong with this, but I also knew many parents couldn't accept their child being gay. If my mom wanted to hit me, I would understand. I took the initiative and apologized. "I'm sorry, Mom. I've disappointed you." My mom asked with a cold expression, "How long have you two been together?" "Less than half a month." "Who pursued whom?" "I did." "Are you just playing around? Or are you serious?" "I'm serious." I was expecting a huge fight, but to my surprise, my mom accepted it very calmly. When my mom told me to treat Gavin well, I was stunned. My mom chuckled. Look at you. You think your mom has lived for 50 years for nothing? My dad always listens to my mom, so since she approved, he had no objections. Having parents like this must be a blessing from a past life. Just when I thought the crisis was averted, a problem arose on Gavin's side. His parents couldn't accept their son being with another man. No matter how hard Gavin and I tried, his parents wouldn't agree. Gavin was grounded, and his phone was taken away. I couldn't contact him, and I was going crazy with worry. Was this it for me and Gavin? But I didn't want that. Just when I didn't know what to do, my parents, without a word, dragged me over to Gavin's house. The moment Gavin's mom opened the door, my dad kicked me from behind, and I fell to my knees at her feet. My dad said fiercely, "Quick, promise your aunt and uncle you'll never bother Gavin again." I shook my head. "Mom, Dad, didn't you agree to let us be together?" My mom spoke up. "Relationships are about mutual feelings, but since his parents don't agree, you can't bother them anymore." Before I could say anything, my dad grabbed a ruler and started whipping me with it. Just then, Gavin burst out of his room and tried to rush over to protect me, but my mom held him back. My dad said, "If you don't promise today to stop pestering Gavin, I'll beat you to death." I glanced at Gavin's tear-filled eyes and gritted my teeth. "No, I want to be with him." My parents took turns scolding me, saying I had betrayed the love Gavin's parents had for me. My dad didn't hold back. He hit me so hard I gasped in pain. Seeing this, Gavin's parents finally softened and grabbed my dad's arm. "Stop hitting him. Let's talk." It was our parents who talked. After their conversation, Gavin's parents finally agreed to let us be together. Turns out, the old sympathy play really works. When Gavin found out it was all a scheme cooked up by me and my parents, he chewed me out. He called me a fool, saying it wasn't worth it for him. Actually, Gavin's parents didn't have a problem with homosexuality. They were just afraid of how society, which has never been accepting or understanding, would treat us. They were worried we wouldn't be able to handle the public opinion. From the moment we decided to be together, we knew we'd have to face all of this. And I believe there are more good people in this world than bad. They will understand us, and they will bless us. Ever since we got both our families' approval, Gavin has really let loose. He started showing off in every way possible. He changed his profile picture on all his social media to a photo of our backs and publicly announced our relationship. At first, everyone thought it was just Gavin losing a dare. But when he started handing out our wedding announcement cards, they finally realized we were for real. The wedding was set for my birthday. Gavin said he wanted to give himself to me as a birthday present. That little romantic. I love it. On our wedding night, I pushed Gavin, dressed in a white suit, onto the bed. He was grinning from ear to ear. So eager? How could I not be? I've been waiting for this day for so long. I kissed his lips gently. "Don't worry, I'll be gentle." The morning after, I really didn't expect this. I ended up being the bottom. What have I done to deserve this?